We knew when we started a homestead that one of the biggest changes we would have to get used to moving out of a more urban area into a rural homestead was a lack of internet. Especially when I have a tech job and we rely on the internet for things like lessons in Spanish and homeschool, accessing other homestead communities. All this relies on the internet. And there is a very real digital divide. This map is the front range of Colorado, and the more that you go to the east or to the right of this red line, the less internet is available. And the homestead location that we found was definitely to the right of the red line here, right? I mean, it's out on the eastern plain, and we were able to find some property and a barn and a place to open up some animals. And as we considered internet options, we looked at every provider you could think of in the area. Back in February, there was a lot of discussion about SpaceX's Starlink, this constellation of satellite that would change the way that satellite internet would work. And right off the bat, I mean, that publication went out February 9th, and the same day, we knew this purchase of the farm was going to happen. We knew internet would be a problem. We hadn't even closed on this property, and I put down a deposit to get our order in with Starlink. And the problem isn't that internet couldn't be found. It's that terrestrial internet just had some performance issues. In fact, let's talk about what our real world performance is here 10, 11 months later. My broadband today is provided by a 5G network. Unfortunately, it's got middling reliability. I've had them redeploy it. I use Unify gear internally, which is at a prosumer level, and I have the terrestrial broadband through the WAN today. If we look at roughly a month of use, I have pretty consistent internal network, but you'll notice that I have the down and up set at 100 megabit and 60 megabit. The reality is, even though it shows 100% uptime, I really don't drive 100% uptime. It's closer to 99, which is far better than the 96% I was at for a while. When I run the speed test, you'll notice that my download speed is decent, right? I mean, 70, 80 megabit broadband is okay. It's usable. I can do most of the types of things that I need to do for work. My upload is really good. In fact, it's better even than my Comcast was. That is, when it works. The problem with wireless broadband is, yes, you get 48.5 megabit, but unfortunately it's spotty, especially during things like thunderstorms, right? So if you add Starlink, it gives, in theory, a backup connection. And then if you turn around and you run the speed test, speeds are fairly consistent. You'll notice the ping is really, really good. That's because the Nitel server in Denver has really good connectivity. It's fiber all the way from the local wireless tower all the way down to Denver. My upload continues to be really good when you connect not only to local servers, but even remote servers as well. But reliability is really the key. And so we ordered back on February 9th. November 23rd, I get the email. Hey, thank you for signing up. I know it's been 9 months. You can expect the opportunity to finish your order soon. And as we get into December, I get the your order is ready email. You can go in, you can pay $500, which, by the way, that hurts. That hurts. Almost $500 to finish your order and order the components to get your satellite terminal. But honestly, I was super excited. Still am, by the way. But at the time, I was super excited. Lauren and I talked about, is it worth it? And at the end of the day, I have to have internet to be able to work. So we decide to move forward. And we take a couple days to discuss this. December 18th comes around. we finish placing our deposit. We pay off the rest of the pre-order pricing, and it tells us at the time it was pending. I went back and took this screenshot so it shows shipped, but our order was placed on December 18th, and I am excited. I mean, I'd like to get this thing, and then I realized, wait a minute, I just paid $500 for the satellite, but I actually need a few other things to make this thing usable for my internet. So you go to the Starlink shop, and then you find out that there are a few other things that you're going to have to plan on. If you get the satellite in just the basic configuration, you literally get what's in the picture. You get a rectangular Generation 2 satellite on a tripod, and the tripod is metal, and it's got a couple of holes in the bottom of it for you to put some stakes in the ground. We live in a place where that is not going to be a viable configuration. There are animals, there are children. We get 40 to 60 mile an hour winds. It's not every day, but you get it several times a year, so you have to plan for it. It's not some crazy, never happens event. It's something that happens several times a year. So I go on the website, and I'm looking around. Okay, we're going to do a roof mount. I got to run cable from where this thing's going to end up on my roof back to the utility room where the rest of the internet is. So I'm going to need a few more things. So not only have I paid the $500 up front to get the Starlink, but I've now had to pay an additional amount for the cable, an additional amount for the Ethernet adapter, which, by the way, was not cheap, and another $40, I think it was, for the pivot mount. So at this point we've been on other internet for months and months and months. $600-700 in upfront costs at this point to get the parts. But I'm gonna have internet soon. No problem at all. Until I get this email, December 21st. Several days later. Hey, we got your order for a pivot mount, but we can't actually provide one. We're working to get one. We don't have one. It's going to be at least a month after you get your satellite terminal. So if you really need that thing, well, you better reach out to our support, and we'll figure out what we can do. Not a problem. I'm an internet guy. I'm pretty technology savvy. I do a lot of the work around the homestead. I can do my own electrical. I can do my own network wiring. Not a problem. We'll figure it out. So I reach out to the support team, and the support team is extremely kind. I got to be honest, Shauna, you were fantastic. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. In fact, they went and they credited my account, so the time that I don't have the right parts, I'm not going to be paying for. They credited my account to refund some of the stuff that I had ordered that just isn't available. They did the right thing, but it's December 21st, and they're essentially telling me, hey, look, go look at the store, go figure out which thing is the right thing. Meanwhile, Christmas is approaching, so I put it off for a few days, but right before Christmas, I get this wonderful little gift. And I just had to give a shout out to the SpaceX team. I was really excited about this on Christmas Eve to get my email that, hey, your order is shipping. Their original forecast was for sometime in January, and they hurried it up to the end of December. It was a nice little Christmas present. So Christmas goes by. And then I start digging into this. Which mount do I need? How do I get this dish actually up and mounted on my house? Well, if after you get your order placed, it unlocks your ability to go into the Starlink store. And when you go to the Starlink store, there are a variety of mounting options. One is a kit to be able to run wiring through walls that are difficult to penetrate, right? The masonry kit. And then there are a number of different mounts, right? The pivot mount to actually mount onto the roof, which is probably the most common situation. It's the previous owners of this house, that's what they did for whatever their prior satellite provider was. We still have that junk on the roof. I'm going to have to take that down. And so one of my questions in mind was, could I use one of their kits to reuse the mount that's already there? Why put new holes in the house if I could just reuse some existing satellite, which, by the way, is rock solid. It's been there for several years. It's still there. It's still doing everything that it's supposed to, just the satellite's not turned on. So when I look around at these different mount options, I could put something in the ground. Out here, that's difficult. The soil requires a concrete footer. It's not like you could just put a pole in the ground and put something on top of that. Plus, we have wind and snow loads here, so you got to keep that in mind. Pipe adapter is only going to be helpful if I have an existing pipe to be able to put this thing on, which I don't. There's a short wall and a long wall mount, and I'm not really sure how these two things compare. So I'm going to have to figure that out and take a look at it. But first, they have this pipe adapter, and I have these existing mounts. I've got one on the wall, and I've got one on the roof. What if I could just reuse one of those? No problem. I take a look at the Starlink instruction booklet. This is the only diagram that you get in the pipe adapter. This, by the way, is the installation guide. You're looking at all of the English language directions that are available for you in the installation guide. So if you're mechanically inclined, you realize that what you're doing is you're putting set screws in, and those set screws just put tension on whatever the existing pull is in the bottom of it. But that's all the guidance you get. You don't get any measurements. On the actual order page, they tell you that it fits up to, I believe it's a 2.5-inch pipe. But that is all the input that you get. And I took a look at it. I really don't think this adapter is going to fit the existing mounts. If you don't have an actually round pipe, that's what this is built for. This is built for a round pipe. Think like a fence post or a flagpole or something like that. And it's just about going over the top of it. This isn't some way to be able to secure it on the side or something like that. I mean, it has to go right on the top of a round fence pole. Not a lot of us are going to have that kind of mount available. So I say, that leaves me with the wall mounts. I got to figure it out. I mean, if the roof mount's not available and the pole pipe adapter thing won't fit the existing satellite mounts that are on the house, and I don't believe they will, that leaves me with the wall mounts. Generally from a physics perspective, anything that hangs out further is going to be less stable and is going to be more likely to break, especially with high wind loads or snow loads or anything like that. So if you can get away with the short wall mount, the physics say you want to. Well, I would love to figure out if I can get away with a short wall mount. Again, I go to the installation guide, and here is what I find. I go page by page in the installation guide, and it's a PDF. And here's what you can see on the left side. I have to go all the way down to page 7 I think even down to page 8. Yeah, it's page 8 where I finally get this diagram that I've blown up on the right side. It doesn't tell me how far this thing sticks out from the house. It doesn't give me any measurement for how far the mount kind of pushes out. What it does tell me is I need at least a 1-inch clearance between the pipe and any wall overhang, and I've got to have at least 4 inches between the bottom of the satellite dish and the roof. I have no idea what that means for mounting dimensions. I have no idea what the length of the short wall mount are. I have no idea how much this thing pushes out from the house. There are zero engineering and technical diagrams for the Starlink mount, and it is hard for me to believe in this day and age where even IKEA can provide that kind of direction, that Starlink, with the level of sophistication and the rocket engineers that SpaceX and Starlink have available, that somebody can't figure out how to do a basic dimensions diagram. So I finally decide I'm going to go with the long wall mount, and I download the instruction manual for that one. Here is the entirety of the instructions that are available for the long wall mount. This is what you get right here. I am still waiting on the long wall mount to arrive. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. But this is as of, I believe, December 27th was when I figured out, okay, I'm just going to go with the long wall mount. I'm going to install it on the wall underneath the eave. It'll stick out from the eave, and I'm just going to have to make sure that I've got a rock solid mount. And I've sealed this thing up tight when I go ahead and do the installation. So it's December 27th. It's time for me to go back to Starlink and tell them my decision. I relate that to them. They go ahead, and it takes a couple of different people involved, but they do the credits and they provide some guidance. One thing that I was surprised with that I'll just share with you here is I did go back just because I've got to start planning out, like, where am I going to put this thing? How much cable am I going to have to run? What does that mean for actually installing and connecting the Starlink system up? From my location in northern Colorado, the satellite constellation are going to point to the north. This is very interesting because a lot of the other satellite networks that I'm familiar with actually look for a south face. So if you are acquiring SpaceX Starlink, this is one of those things you're going to want to pay attention to depending on your location. This may actually require a direction that is different from other satellite providers that you may be familiar with in the past. Anyway, December 28th, they put the order in the very next day after I contact support. And meanwhile, at FedEx, the original, you'll remember, Christmas Eve gift of, hey, your order has shipped, not so much. Not so much. Meanwhile, at FedEx, FedEx has the package in Carson, California, and all the way to December 30th has not actually moved it anywhere. Now, a day or two of that is probably going to be the holiday. I mean, none of us really expect people to be moving packages on Christmas. But by December 30th, nothing has happened with this package. I've called them once. I've called them twice. They've initiated a trace. They're supposed to get back to you within a matter of hours after a trace. It takes days for them to find this package. So the 30th, they finally find the package and they get it moving on its way again. And 3 or 4 days after the trace, after they get it moving again, it finally starts to show up. Meanwhile, the extension cable that I need to hook this whole thing up, just because of where my utility room is versus where I've got to mount this for a north face, means the second package is delayed as well. And it's not that they were both in the same place. This one actually got delayed a different place in California. They lost it for a couple of days out in California, and then Henderson and Johnstown had some delays. So instead of arriving in 2 or 3 days, it ends up taking most of a week to get to my house. Now, once they actually got moving on it, it got moving fairly fast. But so FedEx at this point is 0 for 2. And for me, it's just very frustrating because the holiday rush, in theory, is mostly over, and it doesn't seem particularly hard. This is the entire reason that FedEx exists. It is to move packages from one place to another. Meanwhile, a couple days later, the additional mount ships. At this point, this is 6 days ago. I'm recording this on the 10th, so on the 4th, the order ships. I'm quite excited about this. Okay, we've gone 0 for 3. Come on, FedEx. All 3 Starlink packages have gone into the ether at FedEx. Let's be clear about this. Microsoft Azure can deploy a data center into the middle of a cornfield in Nebraska to help stand up a new ground station for Starlink, and can be up in a matter of hours, running in a container, managed with the rest of the cloud assets of Starlink in hours. Starlink can take a bunch of satellites, stick them in a rocket, fire the rocket into space, launch 60 satellites on one mission, and then bring the first stage from that rocket back down to Earth and land it on a stinking ship driven by robots. And meanwhile at FedEx, we can't even figure out how to put a box on a truck without losing it in a warehouse. 3 times. 0 for 3. So at this point, I just left it alone. I didn't even call FedEx about this one. And I was very happy today to get the message, hey, well, we lost it, but we went ahead and found it again, and it ended up in a truck, and we're going to go ahead and deliver it to you. Which brings us to today. At this point, the mount should be coming. I've got the Starlink boxes. I don't have everything that I need to connect this thing into my network. The pivot mount ended up getting canceled, and the long arm mount is on the way instead. The Ethernet adapter that I need to connect it into the rest of my network is not available. That means that when I actually set this up, it's going to be a completely separate wireless network. So if my primary internet fails, I have to do stuff to get on the other wireless network to be able to keep working, or whatever it is that I need to do. The replacement cable did arrive. It's been a little bit of a journey, but here we are. We actually have the Starlink equipment, at least the basic terminal. It's here, and there will be an unboxing video later this week.